Good morning. It's great to be with you today. I'm Matt Smith, president of the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce, and we're very happy to welcome you to another in our First Friday speaker series here at the Allegheny Conference in the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. Today will be our last First Friday event of 2021, and I really want to start out by making a note of our appreciation and the conference's consistent appreciation for the work of Comcast in our community. And Comcast has been the sponsor for the 2021 First Friday Speaker Series. And we are extremely grateful for both your work in the community as well as your consistent support of our efforts. And as everyone knows, we wouldn't be able to do our work and hold events like this without sponsors like Comcast. So I want to make sure I recognize you at the outset because you've been a tremendous supporter of our efforts during the 2021 series. As I said, today's our last series, and there could not be a more important issue to close the series with than the ones we have to present to you today, specifically immigration reform and refugee resettlement in the Western Pennsylvania region. And the reason we thought these issues were so important to bring to you today, and certainly from three views, from very different perspectives, is that we want to make sure that we're having discussions like this to communicate, number one, why these issues are so important to Southwestern Pennsylvania. We're going to hear a lot about these issues on the public policy and the political front in 2022. So we want to make sure that we're setting the table and providing the context to all of our stakeholders as to why these issues are so important. And then I think secondly, why these issues and how these issues can benefit the Pittsburgh region from a quality of life perspective, from an equity perspective, and from an economic growth perspective. And I think those issues are very much at the forefront of immigration reform and refugee resettlement. And as I said, we're very much looking forward to the discussion today from our panelists, and as I said, from three different perspectives, that is actually going to be led by Patrice Thompson, the Allegheny Conference Director of Investor Relations. So we're looking forward to that discussion. But before we bring Patrice on and toss the mic in Florida, Patrice, I want to make sure we bring on Jennifer Clunan, who is the Director of External and Governmental Affairs for Comcast, for a few words. And again, thank you to Comcast. Thank you to you, Jennifer, for your consistent support of our First Friday Speaker Series throughout 2021. It is very much appreciated. So without further ado, Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Matt, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of Comcast Business, I'm as eager as all of you to hear from our friends at the Pittsburgh Metropolitan Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Hello Neighbor, and NAIOP Pittsburgh. Learning directly from three leaders at the forefront of attracting, retaining, and growing talent and opportunities in our region showcases the critical dialogue facilitated by the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. Comcast Business thanks the Chamber, as well as the leadership and staff of the Allegheny Conference, for continuing to provide formats like this to gather and partner. The guests who are here today are shaping our region's future. You may recall that a little over a year ago, Comcast introduced nationwide our RISE program as part of a $100 million diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. RISE, which stands for Representation, Investment, Strength, and Empowerment, provides the opportunity for small businesses owned by people of color to apply to one of the following focused support areas: media, marketing services, creative production, consulting, and technology makeovers. From bakeries and barbershops to childcare centers and cleaning services, RISE gives small businesses the tools needed to not just survive, but thrive. The Comcast RISE program is continuing to accept applications for marketing and technology services at www.comcastrise.com, with the next wave closing on October 17th. To date, nearly 4,700 Comcast RISE awardees have been announced nationwide, and the program will have supported 13,000 small businesses by the end of 2022. This includes 23 businesses in Harrisburg, Lancaster, Reading, McKees Rocks, Newcastle, and Pittsburgh. The Greater Pittsburgh Chamber will be putting a link in chat so you can learn more about RISE, including FAQs and the application process. I would ask that you take a moment to review it and then reach out to a small business in our region and let them know about this opportunity. There is no catch. This is how Comcast gives back and supports small businesses. And since we are talking about small businesses, I want to quickly highlight that Comcast Business recently began offering a new mobile service designed to perform for small businesses. Comcast Business Internet customers can now enjoy unlimited nationwide talk and text on up to 10 lines with no term contract required for mobile and no line access fees. And there are budget-friendly mix and match options too. In addition to the speed, agility, and compatibility small businesses need for their mobile business phones and tablets. As we head into the holiday season, we invite you to stop in one of our Xfinity stores and explore your own options. Visit with us at our stores in Beaver Falls, Bridgeville, Greensburg, the Waterfront in West Homestead, Indiana, Monroeville, East Liberty, Washington, and our newest location on McKnight Road in Ross Township. We'd love to help make your holidays brighter with devices, speeds, and budget-friendly options guaranteed to delight everyone on your list. And with that, I'll hand it off to Patrice Thompson. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Patrice Thompson, Director of Investor Relations with the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. Excited to welcome a panel of experts who will discuss the importance of immigration reform, refugee resettlement, and the role immigrants play in advancing our region. We'll take a deeper dive into how Pittsburgh compares to other regions and how our lack of diversity affects inclusive economic growth. An important part of attracting and retaining the talent we in this region need to remain competitive will rely on attracting those from outside our borders and providing the most welcoming environment to thrive and remain here. While the conference and many of our members are working to create places and spaces that welcome diverse talent to build an ecosystem for all, we know there is more that can be done, and we look forward to exploring these topics this morning. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce each of our panelists individually, asking each of them to talk a little bit about their work as it pertains to these issues. Also touching on the role immigrants and refugees play in growing our economy and bringing diversity into the region. And how can we serve as a more welcoming region for newcomers? As usual, we will have a little Q&A, so don't forget to submit questions in the chat function below. I would like to introduce Melanie Marie Boyer, who serves as the Executive Director of Pittsburgh's Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, a Cal U and Duquesne University alumni. Melanie is a Colombian and United States citizen and entrepreneur at heart. She is a business owner, previously working in freelance marketing, production, recruiting, speech coaching, brand management, among other things. Melanie, we would love to hear some remarks, and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I always love hearing people say the mouthful of our whole name. So I appreciate that very much. But welcome everybody. I'm so glad to be here talking about this topic specifically. The Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is the principal regional advocate for the economic interests of the Hispanic community. We work with corporations, small businesses, students, professionals, and nonprofits, and kind of act as that bridge that holds everyone together. You know, everyone needs jobs, everyone needs employees, and everyone needs to take that next step. And here in Pittsburgh, we know that we are a turnkey city, and especially first and second generation immigrants have a very difficult time breaking down those doors. So we're here to break down those doors, you know, like Jennifer said, attract, retain, and grow, which I'll talk more about in a little bit, but I'm glad to be here and very happy that you guys are spotlighting this important topic. So thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Excited to hear from you in a little bit. So next, I'm pleased to welcome Sloane Davidson, the founder and CEO of Hello Neighbor. Prior to starting the organization, Sloane worked for 15 years across the intersection of philanthropy and digital marketing. For 8 years, she created and led one of the leading cause blogs, Cosmopolitan, and she currently sits on the board of Resolve Network, an NGO based in the Democratic Republic of the Congo that focuses on jobs for women in post-conflict countries through microfinance, and the prestigious Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy Women's Philanthropy Institute. Welcome, Sloan. Love to hear some remarks.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me this morning. It's such a pleasure to see everyone and really invigorating to see a conversation happening about immigration reform and about refugee resettlement here in the city of Pittsburgh and across Allegheny County. When I founded Hello Neighbor 4.5 years ago as a native Pittsburgher that had lived away for quite some time, the biggest thing that I saw in this region and really all around the country is that refugees tend to receive an initial 90 days of support from the federal government through a program called Reception and Placement. And while there's some additional programs that they can sign up for after that 90 days, including one specific for workforce development called Match Grant, the majority of refugees in our region don't have that extra support system that was happening after day 90. And that's really where Hello Neighbor steps in. Our biggest role is to help our newest neighbors, refugees, special immigrant visa holders, those are mostly Afghans in this upcoming year, additional Afghans that are being resettled, certainly immigrants as well, and help them be guided and supported in creating their new lives here from scratch. Over the past 4.5 years, we've matched 150 refugee families from 17 countries of origin with caring neighbors to help them. And we have a number of other programs really supporting the role of refugees and immigrants across our region. And our newest endeavor is a federal contract to start directly resettling refugees to the region, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sloan. And finally, I would like to welcome Brandon Mendoza. Brandon is the Executive Director of NAIOP Pittsburgh, the local chapter of the National Association that represents the interests of developers and owners of industrial, office mixed use, and related commercial real estate. He has extensive knowledge about land use policy, advocacy, nonprofit fundraising, and PAC fundraising. Brandon was named NAIOP Corporate Executive Director of the Year in 2020, and a former colleague of mine worked at the Allegheny Conference and Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Brandon. Welcome, friend.
Hey, Patrice. Thank you guys for having me back, and thanks to all of the First Friday goers. I'm missing all of you, so I appreciate the chance to come speak with you. As Patrice said, I lead NAIOP Pittsburgh, which is the Commercial Real Estate Association. We've got about 20,000 members across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And then in Pittsburgh, we have over 400 members. So why am I speaking about immigration? As Matt and Jen and the team know, and for many of you on the First Friday group know, this has been like a passion of mine. So my dad is a first-generation immigrant from the Dominican Republic. He came in when he was 7. In my current role, it isn't as much of a focus as it was, obviously, while I was on the Chamber of Commerce team, but it's still something that we work on. And, as you guys saw in these recent population numbers, that came out, like a few months back, without immigrants, our region and our county, in the outlying counties would have saw drastic, net decreases in population. And instead we saw Allegheny County have the first positive increase in population in 50 years. So, this is an important topic, and as we'll get into now, there are some important things at the federal level, state and local level on this front.
Thank you, Brandon. So we're going to jump into questions. The first question is for all 3 of you, so whoever taps in first. So how can immigrants and refugee impact our workforce and our economy as a whole?
I'll jump in. So one of the things to remember is that refugees and immigrants tend to start businesses at 4x the time of Native Americans or Native Pittsburghers or Native peoples to this region. And that's a lot of entrepreneurialism. But in order to get to that spot where they're able to start their own businesses, they're working, and they're working across the region, learning the skills that are needed. And so much here in this country is really different. There's a lot more regulation and laws and, the marketing with social media, and someone slips on the sidewalk, and all of those pieces. So there's a lot that they have to learn, and they do it both formally and informally. So they're doing it, formally, maybe through taking classes, through signing up for different types of learning opportunities. And then they're also informally learning it by working in other places. So that's part one. And then part two that I think, I'd like to mention and highlight that we see every single day is that for many of the refugees that we're serving, and we're really working with people who have been here about 5 years or less. As Hello Neighbor grows and as the region grows and recruiting more refugees and immigrants, we'll certainly have people that have been here, a lot longer that are in our programs. But the one thing that I'll say that I talked to the conference about and to chamber members is that in addition to eds and meds and all of the recruitment that we do in the region to really get, this high quality, highly educated people to come and participate in the Pittsburgh economy and build their lives here, we still need people that are going to work those hourly wage jobs. And for many of the refugees that are, pursuing their version of the American dream, they're doing that. They're working the dishwashing, the laundry, the housekeeping, the Uber driving, the midnight shifts at UPMC and at bakeries and at factories and at plants and at all of those types of things. And they're here to work and they're here to start over. And so I think that we need to reframe a little bit of our focus to include everyone across the socioeconomic categories and not just focus on recruiting and retaining those higher wage earners. Thank you.
So I love talking about this economic side of it. So on a broader perspective, I mostly deal with the Hispanic community. However, 60% of high value tech companies were founded or co-founded by first or second generation immigrants. That is a huge chunk of our economy in itself. Just in 2007, 25% of all companies were founded by immigrants, and 40% of businesses on the Fortune 500 list were started by immigrants. So that's on the larger scale, with all immigrants. But Latinos, Hispanics alone are responsible for 87% of all new business or of all new jobs since the Great Recession. And Latinas, us ladies alone, are responsible for 50% of every new job in the United States today. Those numbers are huge. Hispanics are starting businesses at a rate of 8 to 1 when compared to other groups. And, we're coming from a time where we had a period of time where you heard all of these negative things, especially about the Hispanic community, that we're taking jobs, and having these conversations with the actual numbers, with the actual facts behind it to say what we're contributing to the economy. The Latino GDP in the United States is the 8th largest GDP in the world. And Latinas, our GDP is the 25th in the world. So that's the 25th largest country, essentially, as far as GDP goes. So when we're looking at these numbers and we're looking at the effect on our economy, especially coming out of a post-COVID world when everything has been on a downtrend now for over a year and a half, we need to look at how to revive the economy. And it's clear when you look at the numbers and you look at the facts that empowering immigrants is the way to economic success.
Yeah, and if I can quickly just attack this question as well. One, I agree with both Sloan and Melanie on their points. I would just say, as my members are out there meeting, with tenants and potential tenants, one of the top things, that tenants reference and something that's in the news right now is just, the lack of available labor. Well, if you think that labor is bad now, constricting the immigration any further and not fixing our system, will make it a lot worse. And I'll give you just a data point. Allegheny County in 2010 was 81% white in the last census in 2010. In 2020, that dropped down to 75%, and almost all of that was from Asian and Latino immigration. And importantly, you can see those numbers directly related in our workforce participation numbers as well. And so one of the reasons why we've been able to, increase our labor force out here in Allegheny County, even while not having the strongest, population growth of a region, even though, now we actually have some population growth.
Thank you all. And we're going to move into some direct questions. I'd like to start with Sloan. So congratulations on Hello Neighbor securing a federal contract for refugee resettlement. So congratulations on that. But can you tell us what this means? Right. Can you tell us what this means for your organization and how it will change the work that you do and how it can impact our region?
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Yes, these contracts, I mean, we're a 4.5-year-old organization. So it's incredibly rare, to sort of be tapped on the shoulder to win a big contract like this. And it's a big honor. And one of the reasons why, we were told that we were selected for it and encouraged to apply is a few reasons. One, USCRI, who is the national agency that will be vetting and assigning us refugees to come to the region, was already here. So I think it's important for Pittsburgh and for Pittsburgh businesses to know that this was a contract that was here until 2018 and it left. And so in terms of the city being able to absorb, additional people coming in and what that sort of means, we were already there and we didn't have it the last couple of years. And part of winning the contract was a lot of required consultations. Chief of police, superintendent of schools, mayor, county exec, people across, DHS and business leaders and a number of the other grassroots community-based organizations and other resettlement agencies. And we universally received support, letters of support, positive interactions in those consultations. And so it's really encouraging to see that this is a region that both is welcoming and inclusive and also striving to do it better. One of the things I like to say about Pittsburgh and things you love is you can love something and want it to be better at the same time. And maybe that is loving something. So, is Pittsburgh the most welcoming place it can be for all? It's certainly not. And I'm also on the Gender Equity Commission at the mayor's office. And there has a lot that the GEC has done and a lot of reports that have come out, certainly for disparities, especially for Black women, for women of color, for people of color in the region. And so one of the things that I really strive to do at Hello Neighbor is not discount or take away from those experiences of people that have been here a long time, those that might be undocumented or aren't being counted for many of the studies and things that are being done, but also at the same time recognizing, the value of our work and what we're bringing to the region. So in terms of what this means for Pittsburgh and for Hello Neighbor, every year we will get assigned a certain number, and the first year it's around 250. That's about 100 refugees, 50 special immigrant visa holders, and these tend to be more highly educated Afghans that worked alongside the US military. And so we have a lot of veteran support, and there's a lot of other things that kind of come along with having some of those SIVs. And we welcomed both of those groups into Hello Neighbor programming the last 4.5 years. So understanding the cultural barriers, the language access issues, and some of those other barriers that kind of can create issues around self-sufficiency and cultural orientation, we're already there. And then the additional 100 is the Afghans that are currently sitting on military bases and looking for a place to build their new home. And so this requires a lot from everybody across the region. One of the first things we have to do is find housing, and it's market value housing, because these are people coming in without income verification. There is no moving people, directly into subsidized housing. So we need landlords, and we need property managers, and we need people that just have regular market value places, but are willing to, to rent to us and to have us rent on someone's behalf if they can't meet them in advance. And part of Hello Neighbor is helping with at least 3 months of initial rent. The second piece is workforce. So we will be directly placing people, and there's wonderful employers, maybe some of them are on the call today, that already see and know and appreciate the value, that these newcomers, these new arrivals will bring. And so we are looking for jobs. So if anyone on here is looking to hire, I know that we're, in a hiring need across the county, please reach out to me at Hello Neighbor, and, we can start that process of what it looks like. It's also school and language access and getting to the bus, bank accounts, every, green, social security card numbers. It's everything. And that all happens pretty quickly. And then people sort of start the process from there. So it's a lot of work that we're getting into, but we're really excited about it. And I'm also really excited for what that means for this region. I think the last thing I'll say, and then I'll pause, is for so many employers that are on this call, this Zoom this morning, how many of us can say we're directly responsible for bringing people to live in this region, to help, pay taxes that pay for potholes and teacher salary and police pensions and all the things that we need to keep our economy humming. And Hello Neighbor is entering that arena. So year after year, we'll be directly responsible for helping resettle newcomers to the region. And it's something that we're really, really proud of.
Thank you so much, Sloan. Again, congratulations. Brandon, so your past work includes involvement with New American Economy, a bipartisan research and advocacy organization whose mission is to fight for smart federal, state, local, and immigration policies that help grow our economy and create jobs for all Americans. Can you talk about some of this work? Where, have we made headway? Where did we stall? And what benefits did you see in working as a part of the coalition?
Yeah, and I would say I would, just make sure I give some credit to the Allegheny Conference and the Pittsburgh Chamber team and the board of the chamber and the conference, because this is something that you guys have worked on for a number of years, and obviously, allowed me to work on while there. I mean, it's kind of amazing, this past decade on immigration and the politics around immigration. I'll be honest, in 2013, I think most immigrant advocates thought that we had turned a corner on immigration reform. We had a bill out of the Senate with 68 votes, bipartisan, and it was all. It seemed inevitable that we were going to get a vote in the House, and obviously we know that vote never came, and we know that the politics around immigration since then have gotten worse. So an organization like New American Economy, which is actually, it was founded with funding from Michael Bloomberg, but they have a board that consists of top CEOs, and other nonprofit organization executives as well, who care about this issue. Their angle has been on the economic analysis side, to provide folks that are doing the work the talking points, to explain to folks that obviously immigration is, in my view, the right thing to do from a policy standpoint, and also from especially on the refugee side, from a humanitarian standpoint. But also there's a lot of economic benefits to it too. So it's one of those win-win situations, and you don't really have that many of those in politics. So so where we stand right now is, I'm sure you guys are all aware, especially like our First Friday crowd, that are a lot of them are policy wonks themselves, but the Build Back Better Act, which is the step 2 part of Joe Biden's his policy that he's working on right now. Obviously we saw the BIF, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which I know the chamber supported and NAAP supported as well. That passed. This part, which I know, especially because of the taxes and whatnot involved, from a business standpoint, it's kind of, there's some things that we're supporting from a NAAP standpoint, and some things that we're working in the background on, to change. But overall, on the immigration side of it, the House is being pretty strong in that they've got about $100 billion set aside in this bill for immigration, and basically to help fix the immigration backlog. It would also set up essentially any undocumented immigrant that's been in the country before 2011 would essentially be put into a category where they could apply for some form of a permanent worker status for about a decade or so, and then there are some other avenues where they could extend that as well. But you know, suffice to say, so without comprehensive immigration reform, this bill probably offers the best kind of, second prize, if you will. So the question on this right now is if the Senate parliamentarian will allow this provision in, when it gets to the Senate. She earlier did not allow the inclusion of language that would have had, literally, some comprehensive immigration reform in it. She did not allow that in there. So the question is, this is a pared back version. There's been some language changes, but the question still remains if that will be allowed in there. And importantly, the stakes on this are higher. CEOs and corporations, I don't need to tell you guys, but the top thing they're talking about right now is that they can't find talent. Well, having this talent on the sideline and having a bad immigration system, and also our immigration system got worse after 2020. The pandemic worsened our immigration system. So if we have problems before, we have even more problems now. So I think that this is a policy window, that there's a window that has opened up, that I think, the amount of need on immigration is severe. And then, and you also see in it, in our food services as well. I mean, you're seeing some of these inflationary costs with, food and whatnot. That is going to have an impact on the population at a broader level, to make them understand, those folks that were working in those services, that you shipped home, that's, this is the cost of that.
Thank you so much, Brandon. So Melanie, I think that many of us are inclined to think of immigrants as a singular group of people, but can you talk about some of the different immigrant groups who have come to the region and the different ways they come to America, what each specific group needs from the community as a region as a whole, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I want to add to that, I don't really believe in speaking for other groups. I think that all groups should really speak for themselves. So I want to really speak more to the Hispanic community, mostly out of respect, because that's where my knowledge area is. So 87% of Hispanics in the United States are here legally. Of those 13% who are not, about 93% of those are here on overstayed visas. So, we've heard so many times about the border wall, all of these things. The truth is that when you look at the numbers, again, the reality is that this is not a major issue. Also, like we talked about, the economic benefits, I think that really says a lot to where immigration is taking our country. Study after study after study shows that immigrants and diversity in the workforce and, in business in general, it only translates to positives when you look at the ROI and when you look at your pocket at the end of the day. We can go to, I hate to say it, but the most racist individual who does not care, who does not want diversity, and tell them this is going to hit your bank account. You can either make more money or you can make less money. And we have an argument for that. But I want to come back to another part of the question. Why are immigrants still coming here? The American dream, guys, we don't see it because we're here every day. We are so spoiled, especially people who haven't traveled outside of the US. Being a Colombian citizen and spending a lot of my childhood in Colombia, I've seen people walk around with machine guns. I've been stopped in the street and, well, first of all, my family told me that I couldn't talk because I have, a bit of an American accent. And they're like, listen, if you talk, you're getting kidnapped. Just shut your mouth, give them whatever they ask for, and keep going. And in the United States, we don't realize this. My cousin's gym was blown up, and she was like, that's fine, I'll just go to the one down the street. This is normal life for the rest of the world. We do not know how lucky we are. There are, I heard someone speak from Gaza, and she said that families have the most children that they can because they need to send someone to the store and they don't know if they're going to come back. She personally had to sneak across multiple borders just to come here. She was a week late for school because she had to get across multiple borders to come here. We think that we have it so hard in this country, but the truth is that the American dream is alive. And when people see us living every day, not in fear, we're able to create businesses. We can walk into a store and purchase food. And if we don't have money, our government will provide for us so that we can have food during those difficult times of our lives. This is the American dream. We are one of, a handful of countries when you look at the whole entire world that really give you the tools that you need to succeed, even when you're at your lowest. Of course, as we know, welfare is not available to anyone who doesn't have a green card, which is another misconception for immigration. But the American dream is alive, and so many people are coming here for safety, for security, for a better life for their children. And this is across the board. So I like to stress that because, again, when we see the media, we think we have it so hard here, but people are coming here to save their lives. They're coming here for a better life. They're not coming here to have a negative impact. And we need to retain these people, even if we just look at the economic numbers, where the United States is slipping in population, in education. Talent is spread evenly. Opportunity is not. So like Brandon said, we have these great minds coming here, and we're making them leave, or we are not giving them the targeted resources that they need to keep them here. We're not walking them through the doors to get them to the next step, which you or I have readily available to us as people who already live here and have a network. So I could probably talk about this all day long because I'm very passionate about it. But in a nutshell, I think that's kind of the all around answer.
No, and thank you for the passion and thank you for the answer. But next, I'd like to just talk about the data from the most recent census. Our region has experienced a shift from losing population to gaining population, and our region grew by 1,200 people over the past decade, a very small gain of 0.5%. And it's far behind the national growth rate of 7.4% and outpaced by Pennsylvania's 2.4 growth rate. While this reversal is certainly an encouraging development, and could signal better times ahead, the region still faces real demographic challenges. The 2020 census also indicated the region has become more diverse. This is another important step in the right direction, although it is not a significant gain and clearly not where we need to be. Can you each just talk about the positive impact of increased diversity in our region and any recommendations you have as to how we can continue to diversify?
Hey, Patrice, if you don't mind, I'll go first. Just on that front, I do want to encourage us. The numbers are obviously not as large as as anybody would want, but we're coming off 50 years of negatives. So, when you get to that point where it's, as a region, and also importantly, we have, what we saw in the census numbers was we've got some driver areas. Obviously, Allegheny County, because of their ability to attract that diverse talent from around the world, from immigrants or refugees. But also, in Butler County, in Washington County, because of housing and job opportunities as well. So, don't get me wrong, from a regional standpoint, that number isn't as large, but to turn the corner to have a positive number, to me, that shows we've got good momentum. It also shows that, we have to build off of that. We need to look at the census tracts that grew and evaluate why they grew. Was it because of housing? What type of jobs did they have in terms of the folks that are clustered in those areas? But I will say, since this is our topic, the one thing that is true is every place that grew with immigrants. Yeah. So, I just want to just, from our standpoint at NAIOP, we love these census numbers because, we've been working, from a standpoint of, investment because our formulas looked good. We could build in places that, were growing, but to have the overall pie grow, it just makes, all of our jobs easier.
So in terms of the population growth from 2010 to 2017, the Hispanic population in Pittsburgh grew 170%. That was during a time when year after year, Pittsburgh saw a 1 to 3% loss of population. So when we talk about that growth, and that's just, Hispanics alone, that's not even all immigrants in general. Before COVID, we had a speaker that was supposed to come to our Diversity and Inclusion Summit at the Pittsburgh Business Show. His name is David Feehan. I met him by chance. We started talking economics. I told him that I was involved in the Hispanic community, that I was Hispanic, and he instantly went off. He has no ties to the Hispanic community. He's not Hispanic in any way. He's not related to anyone Hispanic. And he told me that his career for the last 40 years has been to go from city to city and help revive the economics of that city. And that what he found over those 40 years was that the key to reviving the economics of any city was to feed in and to elevate the Hispanic small business community. And I share this because I also think that it applies to all other immigrant and refugee groups, especially that are starting small businesses. He said the small businesses and the immigrant population, when they start to thrive and they start to do well, they spread the word to others in other states, in other cities, in other countries that we can thrive here, we can grow here, we can create a community, and we can be elevated together. Now, here in Pittsburgh, you guys all know we're behind in everything. We're considered a big city, but we're so far behind New York, Miami. So we can see our trajectory when we look at these other cities, and immigrants know that. I've spoken with people who, before they come here, actually almost everyone I've spoken to, especially on the higher education levels, they research all these cities and they say, where is the most opportunity? Where can I grow the fastest? Where, is a livable place where we can send our children to school, all the things that we're looking for, all the reasons that all of us here have stayed in Pittsburgh or have chosen to come back. So we need to find a way to really foster that and retain those different groups. And I think we have it in a later question, but really, I just think it's so important when we see that population growth, like Brandon said, again, how do we foster that? How do we help these groups that are growing our city and our country grow more quickly and efficiently, really?
And I'll just sort of jump in to echo both of those, really great comments, especially around the population size and that 50-year decline. For other cities of our size, we have about half of the non-native population. So other cities of our size might have upwards of 14%, and we have about 7 or 8. And so we have a lot of space to grow our population across the board. And we know that that deeply matters. The other piece that I do like to talk about, and I put them next to each other on purpose because the economic benefit is so important, but there's a moral imperative. And, part of what I also think is important to talk about and just ground everyone in a little bit is, yes, the economics are critically important and we get that, but we can't imagine what it's like to have to flee your home and to leave everything that you know by force or by choice. And wouldn't we want the same? Someone to just help us, get that first job, get that first apartment, lost at the bus stop, figure out where to go, provide that little bit of extra support for the kiddo in school that is thrown in day one into full English classes with language access support for English language learners, right? Like isn't this what we would like? Here at Hello Neighbor, we were part of a national research study and campaign last year through the Ad Council called Belonging Begins with Us, partially funded by Walmart. New American Economy was a part of it, the Center for Inclusion and Belonging. And one of the biggest data points that came out of that national multi-year study was that about 75% of Americans don't interact with a refugee or immigrant on a daily basis. So for people who are deeply supportive of our issues or are vehemently opposed, the majority of them, it's a theory. They're not actually interacting on a day-to-day basis. And so I think the biggest thing that we see in our region is this sort of like, upper level conversation of like, what does diversity look like and mean to me and to, I think, Hello Neighbor and maybe to the other panelists. It means that you would actually get to know someone with a different upbringing, a different background, literacy level, education level, economic level. And there's wonderful things that happen when you diversify your own personal network that you have in your faith community, that you have in your other, social groups that you're a part of and your neighborhood. And so I think that, it's important to put that moral imperative right up against the economic, remembering that for the majority of people, this might be a theory and we're trying to make it more of a reality.
Thank you all. I want to jump into a question that was asked from some of our attendees. There's a great workforce need in healthcare and long-term care sectors. Are any of your organizations working on or would like to work on recruitment and training opportunities for those areas?
That is something that we are absolutely looking at right now. I didn't really give a big history of the chamber before, but for the first time ever, we have funding for an executive director position and we're developing programming. So I just wanted to put in here, if anyone is looking to work on these things, please contact me. We are looking at building out these programs, specifically our scholarship program. We've given almost $250,000 since 2011 to Hispanic students in the greater Pittsburgh area. But Pittsburgh is a turnkey city. Not only that, but there's huge gaps between education and employment. So we're missing training. We're missing, how do you do your LinkedIn, your resume, all of these things. And we are filling those gaps with programming. But at the end of that, we would love to partner with, okay, what certificates can we get, first and second generation students to get them really a leg up. And not only that, but to introduce them to companies and have companies specifically say, we would like to do an internship. We would like to hire one person from your program. So these are the types of things we're looking at that aren't just a soft program where you're going through, you're getting knowledge. We want to make sure that we're teaching students all those things that they need, but also salary negotiations, and then that we're actually walking them in the door to those jobs and those things. So anyone who's looking to develop something like this, please get a
I think, Melanie, you got cut off on that last bit, but we'll make sure that we get that information out to anyone if they.
The internet just told me it was unstable. So if I cut out, just let me know.
You cut out at the last minute, so I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to say, but to the participant that asked that question, please reach out to Melanie if you want to work with her. So the next question I have is, Allegheny County Department of Human Services has long taken the lead in working to create a more welcoming environment for immigrants and refugees. And just this week, the mayor's office proposed to expand the work of Welcoming Pittsburgh initiatives to create an Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. The office would work with the community groups to connect immigrants and refugees to resources and promote Pittsburgh as a welcoming home to new immigrants. What does it mean to you to see this commitment from our local government, and what can other local governments in our 10 county region do to expand upon the efforts of the city and the county?
Hey, Patrice. I said on the mayor's his initial I should be specific about which mayor. I said on Mayor William Peduto's, we're in that in between now where I gotta start thinking about who's which mayor. But I said on Mayor William Peduto's his welcoming Pittsburgh committee, probably from the onset, well, not, probably, from 2014 and until last year. And, it's important work. Sometimes it's thankless work, but having, an actual policy within your city, or your county or township to say that, you are actually a welcoming place, and then and having some accountability to make sure that you are meeting some metrics, at least at the base level, it is important. And I think it's important, even as we think about other counties outside of Allegheny. I mean, obviously Allegheny, in the city of Pittsburgh, because of the raw sheer amount of immigrants that are in our city and county, you would think that, it's important. But we're also seeing a lot of folks that are moving into our outlying counties, and we should make sure that they're being received, in a good way in those places as well. I mean, you look at what's going on in Butler County with an explosion in the Asian population here, and in several other counties as well. So Asian, Latino, in a number of other demographics. I mean, we should be striving to make sure that, these counties at the very least have, a base level ability to receive folks in, so that we can work on our retention numbers too as a region. We talk about the population growth, retention is important in that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll sort of jump in and say first, I think when these kind of commitments happen, they help two ends of the spectrum. They help really shine a light on the great things that are happening. And I also think they help shine a light on the things that are really horrible and are not happening. We know that a lot of marginalized communities are taken advantage of. And so I think that a commitment from the mayor's office trickles down to a lot of other departments across the city and across the county and to those other municipalities, and says, we want to be welcoming new people in. It's important. And we are both going to highlight the successes that we have, but also recognize, that there are some really horrible things that sometimes are happening to people. And so I also want to applaud the mayor's office for going through the welcoming standards through Welcoming America. So maybe the precursor to this permanent office was that the city, passed the welcoming standard. And that crosses over, again, elected officials, other types of services across the county, schools, workplaces, everything. And the welcoming team worked really, really hard on bringing the right people to the table. The other thing that I think is incredibly valuable about making this office permanent is it does continue to bring people to the table. I'm on, all of those calls. And so people that are in the space, we get to see each other and share what's happening. But other people maybe come in, a city council member, someone from, the URA, someone from like a parking authority. People come in from different departments and have a lot of questions. Similar to, this chamber talk today, we need to have the conversation before, to talk about our refugee and immigrant neighbors and to help provide people a space to recognize that they're even here. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh. We didn't even talk about that really. And so we need to recognize that there is this population growth and that we need more supports to help protect people that are not just coming here, but as Brandon said, retaining them.
I love so many of the things that you guys said. I want to first touch on Brandon, accountability. If we don't know where we are, we don't know where we've been, how do we know when we're moving the needle forward? There's absolutely no way of measuring that if we don't have a system of accountability, and there's no reason to move forward. And I think that, especially when we talk about diversity and inclusion in general, over the last year and a half, we have seen so much change in this direction. Unfortunately, a lot of it is just, let's throw a couple dollars at the issue, let's put out a press release and let's move on. We're checking the box. That's not what we need. So back to the question, when it says, what does this mean to you when you see that the mayor's office is doing these things? You know what? It means it's a step in the right direction. but it also means that we have a lot more work to be done. You know, I can personally say that I know people who have been on this initiative. I've heard the name a lot, but no one's ever come to me and said, how can we partner with you to make this more of a thing? And we have a board member who is very involved. So, you know, while it's there, and of course there's great work being done, there's so much more that we can do. And I think that partnership thing is something that we also struggle with here in Pittsburgh. I know, especially in the Hispanic community, it's something that we're very actively working on getting better at, because if we're not working together, how are we going to take our biggest leaps forward? You know, we can grow the most together. And when we put all of our resources together, we can just move forward exponentially. And I think that especially when it comes to immigrant and refugee situations with people being from all different places, you know, we put everyone in different baskets. We say the Latinos, you know, we say the people from here, the people from there, but really, you know, if we all work together, I think that that's the key. So when I see that these things are happening, wonderful. But sometimes I tend to ask the questions, why isn't this group involved? Why isn't this group connected? And let's be honest, no one's perfect. No one can think of everything or do everything. And that's why we have conversations like this, so that we can stimulate those things. So.
Oh, absolutely. Collaboration is key. So thank you all. A lot to unpack, but we have just a few minutes left. So if there's any final remarks from each of you before we close, please, you know, jump in.
I would like to just challenge everyone a little bit. You know, we can have these conversations all day. We can do the work. We can work on the policy, but we also need to work on it in our personal lives. I would like to challenge everyone to step outside of your box. You know, if you're used to just going to chamber items in your area, go to an African American chamber event, go to a Hispanic chamber event, an Asian chamber event, you know, go to a cultural event from a culture outside of your own that you're not used to. Meet people, make a specific point. When you hear someone or see someone that you think is from somewhere else, ask them where they're from, be interested, you know, try to, you know, cultivate relationships and open doors for people that you know have not been able to open them for themselves. So that's what I challenge everyone to do today in their personal life.
Hey, Patrice, just, you know, so just real quick, as the folks in Congress are working on this Build Back Better Act, I know a lot of our First Friday folks are actively involved on the policy front. I would encourage you guys to push for support on the immigration elements, regardless of what you're doing on the overall bill. If you can push for support on those immigration elements, it's going to help business, you know, immensely. And then also it just builds that support so that even if the BBB doesn't pass, it can pass on another vehicle, you know, or on another bill. So I would just encourage you, as you're doing that work, to, you know, support that immigration, you know, the immigration policy provisions in the bill.
And I'll just add on to say that I really hope this is a kicking off point for many that are on this call, and the start of conversations that you have internally around both how you recruit and retain immigrants and refugees into your workforce. Andrew Carnegie, flawed as he might have been, had English language classes at lunch. And there's great photos of the men sitting around with their sandwiches wrapped, taking English classes. Edgar Kaufman had women who spoke every language on the floor. So if you came in and you spoke Croatian or Serbian or Polish, you could buy white gloves using your language. We have to remember that, you know, people are starting over, and it's not enough just to offer the job. We have to do the hard work internally of what it takes to think about our systems to be able to welcome them in. Thank you.
Thank you all. Impactful, informational. Thank you so much. And just thank you to the participants for our virtual First Fridays. So our 2022 First Friday series will be in February, and we're hoping to be back in person. In the meantime, we hope to see you all at our Pittsburgh reception on Tuesday, December 14th. Please keep an eye out in your inbox for an invitation coming soon. A final thank you to our panelists and to Comcast Business for sponsoring our 2021 First Friday series. This year has been a different experience than in the past, and we are grateful for our sponsors. We are grateful for our speakers, our participants, and of course, our partnerships that we have. So stay healthy and have a great day, everyone.